I think we don't get time back. We have to do that. And I think it's becoming more and more important, particularly for women and moms in our professional lives, to say what we need, why we need it, and be unapologetic about it. And by the way, still be as smart and brilliant and hardworking and baller as we always have been.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Imposter Talks. I'm Allison Macklick.
And I am Hannah Bloking, and we are here with 4 Under 3. And we are so excited to have yet another amazing episode of Imposter Talks. We have a fabulously impressive guest that we're excited to introduce you to in just a moment. Now, because this is Imposter Talks, Allison and I think it's really important to kick off by sharing a little bit about something that we've done every single week to truly put this into action, really fighting your imposter, which is something we work with a lot of people on. Allison, I'm going to ask you, and you can ask me in the next one. What did you do this week to fight your imposter?
Okay, so this is lame, but are y'all Ted Lasso fans? Yes, no?
Yep.
Okay, there is this one scene where Hannah, and that's her name in real life, she's nervous and she does this big like thing to get really powerful and do this thing. And I had to have an uncomfy conversation this week. And I did that before. It was on a Zoom and I didn't want to have it. And I've been delaying the conversation. And before I did it, I was watching myself and I did that. I was like, ah, and I stood up and I had my arms really big and it made me feel okay. And then the conversation went great. So I'm going to start doing that. And I might even talk about it on our workshops that we do because it really helped. Hannah, what about you?
So one of the things that we talk about a lot is dressing for success. So I had a big presentation for executives this week internally, so my own executives, and I wore my red blazer.
Okay,
Power move.
How did it feel?
Felt great. Yeah.
Good. Amazing. Okay, now we have the woman of the hour. Our special guest today, we have worked together now for the past couple years, and this woman has impressed me since day one. I remember the very first time I was in a meeting, and I'll just go ahead and introduce you, and then I want you to tell everyone about you, Sterrin, but we have the fabulous Sterrin Bird. And I love your last name because you get to use an emoji, which is always awesome. Anytime you're talking, we're always like, there's Bird. But I remember the very first time I was in a meeting with you, you said something, you were talking and presenting to executives, and you said, you might not know this about me yet, but when you said that, it made everyone tune in of, oh, wait, what is she going to say? Do I know her? Do I want to know her? I do want to know her. And it was almost like this very subtle way of setting your expertise, getting everyone on board. And I've started doing that. So I don't even know if you knew that you impacted me just in that very first introduction 4 or 5 years ago. So I feel like this has come, I feel like this has come full circle and I'm really excited to have you on today. And with that, Sterrin, please introduce yourself to our audience. Tell everyone who you are and how you came to be.
I'm so flattered that you guys asked me to do this. I am Sterrin Bird, and who am I? I am a single mom of 2 amazing teenage kids, Mary and Tommy. Tommy's off to college in the fall, and Mary's going to be a junior. I have been in the nonprofit sector my entire career, so believe it or not, more than 30 years now. I like to say that I'm older than I look. And I am currently working several different projects as an interim advancement officer. I was recently announced as the nonprofit executive in residence at Attain Partners out of DC. And then for the last 15 years, I've had my own consulting practice off the side of my desk, and I've made it my full-time gig now, and that's called Wingspan Philanthropy. So that's the play on the bird emoji and my last name Bird. So that's me, and I guess in a nutshell.
I love your introduction. One of the things that Allison and I have learned over the years in doing these talks and talking to very senior, particularly women, talking about how they just learn to nail the about me. And I think you just nailed it. So
thank you.
But we are here today to talk about a specific topic that seems to impact all of us, and it impacts us in different ways, it seems. Let's start off with imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon. Talk a little bit about, what does that term mean to you?
So what it means to me is a feeling sometimes I get in my tummy when people introduce me, because sometimes I hear people like before I make a presentation or before I walk into a room to talk to a group of people, and I hear people introducing me. And sometimes I think to myself, is that me that they're talking about? Did I really do all of those things? And is that who I say I am? And so, what it means to me is being able to get congruent or in alignment with the way people see me and the way I see myself. And sometimes I think for all of us, that can be tricky, really tricky. And so I think for me, it's like, how do I really come to understand and own what it is that is written about me or that is out there in the universe in a way that actually feels authentically me? So in 2016, I was honored by my high school as the alumna of the year. And I remember really clearly because I went down to the reunion with my two kids and they were little at the time. So I think they were like in third and second grade or whatever. And it's the first time Tommy wore a blue blazer and the whole thing. And so we go into my high school and we're sitting in the chapel and the head of school stands up to introduce me. And she's reading my bio and I'm in my high school chapel and I've got my two little kids on either side of me. And my son Tommy leans over to me and he said, "Mom, is all that stuff they're saying about you true?" And that for me, in a nutshell, is what imposter syndrome feels like and looks like in the moment. And I said to him, "Yes, honey, he's, wow, that's really cool." And sometimes we get so wrapped up in who we're saying we are, or how we show up, that we forget to just be exactly who we are and remember that it's enough. When your third grade son looks at you and goes, "Wow, mom," with pure love and with no knowledge of what I do, it's like, hell yeah, that's me. And it's like an aha moment. So
I love the story, and in all of our episodes, we like to strip out like the one liner, and I think the "hell yeah, that's me" has to be it for this. What do you
yeah,
think?
totally.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I can already see it on the promo card. So that was going to be my question for you, Sterrin. Whenever you're in those situations, so you've been doing a lot of really big things, right? Throughout your whole career. Right now, like really exciting things are happening. When you feel that feeling in your stomach, or when you feel that, like, okay, is that me? Like, how do you get it to flip to hell yeah, that is me? Do you think of your son looking at you? Do you have a mantra in your head? Like, how do you get out of that mode into like hell yeah mode?
Honestly, I go back to that moment with Tommy and now, even now, so for example, like the last week of my life has been really nuts with a lot of really big announcements about things that I'm doing out there in the industry now. It's funny, Tommy is now 18 and Mary is 16. And we had dinner the other night when all of these announcements were happening. And I was like, wow, this is when 7,000 people look at a LinkedIn post and hundreds of people comment on it. It's flattering, but there's also an enormous responsibility that comes with that in terms of not only do I need to be who they or I say I am, but I have set the bar now for myself in a way that I put it out there because I want to achieve that. And I sat at dinner with my kids the other night and I showed them the press release and I showed them all the posts. And sure enough, they both looked at me and they're like, "Yeah, mom, look at how hard you've been working." And so I think maybe the touchstone is like the people who know you and love you unconditionally are the ones who really see you, and tell them that you're scared and tell them like, "Oh my God, feels like a lot." And what do you think? Tenfold, it comes back from those people that's, yes, that's who you are. And if it's not who you are yet and it's who you want to be, it comes back to, if you can see it, you can be it. So there's some portion of manifesting yourself also out of the imposter place. If I want to be this global citizen and all of these things, then I need to start manifesting that and saying it out loud to myself and to others that this is who I am, and own it. So my kids are a big piece of that, though, I would say. Yeah. My kid, like coming back to them and being like, "Am I this cool, you guys?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, you're that cool, mom." I'm like, okay. Because they're the most important people to me.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And I don't know if Allison's ever shared this with you, but the 4 under 3, the name comes from Allison and I were both pregnant at the same time with our second babies. And so we were about to have 4 kids together under the age of 3. So
That's a lot.
so this warms my heart thinking about the kids. My kids are 2 and 4, almost 3 and 5. So I'm waiting for that moment. So that's what I aspire to be. But maybe it'd be really helpful for the listeners to maybe hear a specific example of a time recently where you had to exercise that, like maybe a moment in your professional career where you had that moment where you're like, "Ah," and then you had to just exercise the hell yeah, that is me, and really push back.
Okay, so I recently, as I might have said, I alluded to this, that I joined a large strategic consulting firm as a nonprofit executive in residence this week. So it was announced this week. And last week, I flew to Washington, D.C. to meet with their entire leadership team. And I had never met them in person, yet they had agreed to have me come on board and do this role sight unseen and never having met me, on the basis of my track record, my career, and my reputation in the industry. I remember being nervous about going into that meeting, which is typically, I am not a nervous person. Allison knows this about me. Like, I joke around. If I need slides to talk about myself, then I don't know what I'm talking about. Or if I need slides to talk about anything in my industry, then I should never use those as a crutch. But that's another story for another podcast. But point is, I show up to Washington, D.C., and there are all of these partners convened to meet me. And I was like, oh dear, what am I going to do? What's my show? Like, you do the jazz. What's my show going to be? And I took a deep breath and was like, there is no show here. Like, I'm super clear about the work I want to do and about the experiences I've had. I had to get very clear about the stories I wanted to tell. And I walked into that conference room and I was just me. And I went in and I said, this is who I am. This is how I ended up in this industry. And I told a very personal story about that. And this is what I want to do. And this is why I want to do it this way. And there were no slides. There was no script or talking points. And it was a conversation between me, and I felt really seen and held as a leader and an executive in my industry after 30 years of dedicating my life to it. And I was given this room and now all of these resources to make that dream of what I want to do a reality. And all I had to do was take a really deep breath and remember that this is what I've done. This is the story I want to tell. And this is what I want to do. And it's all grounded in my values. And it worked. In fact, it worked so well that I walked out of there and now they're coming back to me saying, what else do you need, Sterrin, to do this the way you want to do it? Because we think you're right and the time is now. And that was really validating for me because I had all the nausea on the flight from California to Washington, D.C. I didn't sleep the first night I got there in the hotel because I was like, what the hell have I done to get myself into this situation where I'm walking into this conference room in DC and I'm going to be like, hi, I'm here, like Madonna or Sterrin or one of those people with one names. And I did it. And I think sometimes it's just about facing the fear. But that's and that was last week.
And then we get to talk to you. How exciting.
Yeah, the timing is perfect. Yeah.
I can't wait until I am at a point in my career where I can just walk in and I'm so rooted in who I am and what makes me passionate and all the things that I don't even have to have slides like that. Oh my gosh. When you were saying that, I was like, oh, that's incredible. Like, I've never even seen someone do that sort of power move. That is so badass. It's going to be on my vision board of me just standing there. Yep.
Like you're just here I am world. Yeah.
It's like you fight your imposter by knowing yourself deeply and your values and then just being your authentic self. That's
Absolutely
beautiful.
At the end, I think I also have the benefit of retrospection. I had a birthday last week. I just turned 54, so I'm not getting any younger. And that's why I joke about saying I look younger than I actually am. But there's something that's happened to me in the last couple of years about being very unapologetically me and speaking truth to power. And I think we don't get time back. We have to do that. And I think it's becoming more and more important, particularly for women and moms in our professional lives, to say what we need, why we need it, and be unapologetic about it. And by the way, still be as smart and brilliant and hardworking and baller as we always have been. And if people can't handle it, there was some expression I heard the other day. It's if you're too much for people, then move on.
I love that.
Yeah, they're not your people. Next.
Thank you. Next. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
totally.
Sterrin, thank you so much for the conversation today. I think Allison and I are both so inspired. We personally can relate so much to what you shared about your children and just the hell yeah, that's me moment, really being yourself. You've given us actionable things that we can take away and start doing today. I think both of us are going to start thinking about how we can show up to our next big meetings without slides or some other type of visual crutch and just be there, be the expert. And so really inspired by everything that you said. So thank you everyone so much as always for tuning in to another episode of Imposter Talks. Thank you so much, Sterrin. It was great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
thank you for tuning in to this episode of Imposter Talks.
Subscribe, like, and review our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And please follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube at 4under3.
And we want to hear your imposter story. If you're interested in being a guest, please email us at info@4under3.io. Thanks so much.